All right, what is up, guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to be working on the truck again. I did a little bit of this work last night, but we're going to finish it up. I'm working on the intake air temp system, and if you're wondering what's going on with my hair, it was crazy hair day at school for my son. So we did our hair matching, and I brought him to school today, and I'm going to go pick him up with matching hair, so that's what's going on here. But track day today and trying to get this thing ready. So I just dropped off a different set of slicks that I found with the rims at the tire place, and they're mounting them right now, or going to mount them, and I'm working on this system. So what I did was I cut this big old hole underneath down here. This had a plate underneath. So that's all open directly to some cold air. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this 90, I'm gonna cut it into like a 45, and then I'm gonna put this pipe going straight down here so it's actually sucking cold air right from underneath the bumper and right into the turbo. So it's not gonna suck any cold air in from the engine bay. It's gonna be coming straight down here. So air will come right under the bumper and it should suck in cold air. So then we'll take it for a drive. If I guarantee that'll help a little bit. If the temps are still really high, then I know I got a different issue. So I'm gonna start with this and do a couple other things. Let's get started. All right, so I got this thing in there now. I'm gonna go take it for a drive and just let it get hot and see what it does. Just kind of comes down like this, and there's quite a bit of spacing in the front, so it should be enough to kind of suck in some cooler air, I hope. If not, my other option is to kind of cut it a little bit shorter. I might actually cut it down at a 45 so it's flat facing forward, and then all this air coming in right here would just go straight into that pipe. So that's my other option there, which I might do that anyways. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? As usual, we got some good news and we got some bad news. Good news is I got the slicks all mounted up. These are some Mickey Thompson ET Drags slicks. They got a little bit of life left on them. They're very used, but they got a little bit of life left on them, enough for probably what I want to do. If not, I can just test them. I got both tires this time for 40 bucks, and these things are actually pretty sweet, pretty nice, so we're gonna go with these. And for the bad news, long story short, it's broke again. So I got everything pulled apart, pulled both the heads off. The number 5 and the number 7 pistons broke. So I didn't think that this was tuning related, and I'm pretty sure I can confirm that. Here's the number 7 piston. The second ringland is actually cracked down here too. So that one broke. So again, as usual, I'm not really very worried about it, but this one was really kind of weird because the tune was like spot on, and it's low boost, low timing, 10-7 air fuel ratio, and it just felt like absolute garbage when I went out to go drive it. So I know I kind of tortured this thing over the last few weeks with a lot of heat, with working on the cooling system and the intake air temps being really high. So this saw high coolant temps several times, very high intake temps, and it could have been basically hurting the thing the whole time, and it still seemed like it was okay. And when I was driving it, seemed good, but when I went out to go drive it, as soon as I put my foot to the floor, it didn't feel right. It sounded like ignition breakup, so I was thinking I needed to get my spark plugs because I increased the boost a little bit, but I already ran it at this level of boost, and it was fine. So something was definitely off. I lifted right away, I knew that, and then I heard like some rattling. It was seriously like, it was like a 50 to a 70 pull. It was like such a short little blip, and 50 to 70, 50 to 80, something like that. It wasn't like wide open and just tearing it apart to 120 or something. It was such a short little burst and just didn't feel right, lifted, and heard the little rattling. So did some investigating. I figured it was heat related, and I feel like I have a way to confirm this. Okay, so here is 2 different screenshots from one of the last videos I put up. This is the beginning of the video when I was explaining how I was going to mount the blow-off valve to this pipe, this section of intercooler piping. So you can see the radiator cap is parallel with the radiator, and it is all the way closed and all the way tight. looks like it should. So this next clip is going to be at the end of the video, end of the same video, after the intercooler blow-off valve was mounted. Now look at the radiator cap, and I didn't notice this, and I went back to look at it today, and you can see that the radiator cap is loose now. So somehow during this process, I bumped that cap and never noticed it, and I was driving it around like ripping on it, wide open throttle pulls and doing a bunch of stuff with it for like 2 or 3 days, and that cap was loose. So I probably lost a lot of coolant. I know I did because I barely got anything out of the radiator, and I just lost a whole bunch, and that is probably what caused my issue. So as you can see there, this is how the radiator cap should normally be, and this is actually going to be, you know, sealed up, pressurizing the cooling system, doesn't allow it to go into the overflow, blah, blah, blah. So with this actually twisted like this, it's not pressurizing the system at all, and everything that's expanding, it's gonna go and piss itself out right into the overflow that I had. One of the first things I noticed when I got home, this is my overflow I was using, just my temporary overflow. I have a new one sitting in a box, I just never hooked it up yet. So it's just a bottle wrapped in like a puppy pad. It's just like an absorbent pad. Look at this thing. It's completely soaked, and it's never really done that before. I noticed it starting to get wet over the last couple days, which would make sense because that cap wasn't on, and it's just pushing all of the coolant out. So kind of annoying, really crappy way to lose the motor, but I do have all spare parts for it, like all the original rods and pistons that were in this motor up on the shelf. So I'm going to throw those in. So honestly, probably by the time you guys see this video, I'm going to have everything back together, or be starting to put it back together. So it's not going to be like a huge downtime. It's not going to be very long. I'm probably going to do some fuel system changes just because it's down, and I might as well. I have some flex fuel injectors I want to try, and I want to flow test these injectors just to make sure that nothing's wrong with those. I don't think they are. I don't think anything is, but just want to show you guys that. Cylinder walls on the two broken cylinders are good. I might hone the number 7. It does have a little bit of marking in it, but it's not even raised or anything. I mean, honestly, the head is even fine. It's a little bit nicked up from the stuff flying around in there, but the valves aren't bent. Nothing's really wrong with it. So heads are good. Everything is good. Block is good. Everything's fine. Head gaskets are both good. Everything's fine. Just those 2 piston tops that were cracked off. So I'm going to go ahead and throw all that different stuff in there, get this thing back up and running, and break it again later. So, now I'll go ahead and I'm going to show you guys the original video that I started shooting before this. I was working on the intake for the turbo, trying to cool the intake air temps down. Got them down to 118 from 200 plus, so that's really good. But I'm just going to go ahead and add in all the footage that I recorded before this, and this was also when I realized that I broke it, and I had quite a few beers after I realized that because I knew I wasn't going to the track, so I was like, nah, let's do it and rip this thing apart. So enjoy. All right, so I got this thing in there now. I'm going to go take it for a drive and just let it get hot and see what it does. Just kind of comes down like this, and there's quite a bit of spacing in the front, so it should be enough to kind of suck in some cooler air, I hope. If not, my other option is to kind of cut it a little bit shorter. I might actually cut it down at a 45 so it's flat facing forward, and then all this air coming in right here would just go straight into that pipe. So that's my other option there, which I might do that anyways. All right, so it's a little bit later in the day. Got the hair taken care of. That's all situated now. So we're just gonna go through and finish getting the truck prepped for the track and go through the engine, everything, make sure everything's good. So got the intake, everything torn back off. Just wanna go through everything, make sure everything's okay. This is just normal, typical, everyday track stuff. You know, we got some issues. So pulled everything apart and I fucking broke 2 pistons again. and I've been looking at this thing for quite a while. It's 10:50 p.m. right now, and I've been working on this since about 2:30. So started pulling everything apart. I was driving it, everything seemed fine. Got into it wide open throttle, and it almost seemed like it was like breaking up a little bit, like it was a spark blowout. I did turn the boost up a little bit, and it was like right at 15 pounds, and it seemed like it was spark blowout. I've had spark blowout before, and that's what it seemed like. So I lifted, and seemed a little weird. Went and did another pull, and same thing. So I lifted right away, and then like 5 seconds, 10 seconds later, I heard like clink, 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 like fucking little rattling shit. Weird. Engine was still running fine. Everything's still running fine. No smoke, nothing going on. Intake air temp was 118 it was, versus the like 145, 200 it was seeing before. So what I'm thinking is the heat finally just took a toll on it. So this engine, since I put this thing in because I had all the cooling issues, and this thing saw like 260 degree coolant temps probably 5-6 times, and intake air temps upwards of 200 plus degrees, 210 degrees one specific day, and 145 plus several times. So I'm thinking it was more of a heat issue, and it finally just decided to go, even though it wasn't really. It was very conservative timing, 15 pounds of boost, 11 degrees of timing, 10-7 air-fuel ratio, 10-7. So it was not fuel related. It's just weird. So came home, I drove it home. I pulled over, I heard it rattling, I pulled over right away, and I'm like, fuck, there's gonna be oil everywhere. Looked underneath, no oil, nothing going on, nothing weird. Didn't see anything, no smoke, nothing. And got in, started up just fine, drove it home, put it in the garage, started looking at stuff, looked at the spark plugs, the number 5 cylinder, the electrode or the ground strap was pushed in, and I've had that before. One time on cylinder 7, put it back out, and it's fine. It's been running since then, and that's a couple months now. So tried that, pushed the ground strap back out, started it back up, and it ran fine. No noise, no smoke, nothing weird. And I ran it for like a minute, couple minutes, and then I started to hear like a dit, like a little knock, almost sounded like a lifter tick, and heard that little thing. So pulled the spark plugs back out. Spark plugs look fine, they look normal, but it still had that little knock. So I pulled the oil pan off, started pulling the pan off, doing all the shit, just trying to see what was wrong. Didn't see anything in the oil, nothing in the oil. Didn't see like any metal flake or any discoloration in the oil. Nothing was really weird there. Did a compression test, 160 in all cylinders. Cylinder 1 was 170, and there was one that was like 155. So they're all like very, very close, except for cylinder number 7. Cylinder number 7 was 110. But cylinder number 5 is the one that's broken the worst. So cylinder number 5, during the compression test, was at 160. The same as all of the other cylinders. This one was just fine. Compression was just fine. But if we look here at number 7, this one's broken. It's broken a lot less than number 5. But it is broken, and they're broken in almost identical location. Look right on that fly cut. It's like almost the exact same break. That's really weird. If you look at that dot, and look where this thing is broken, it's like the exact same spot, except this one goes up a little higher. Kind of weird. But this one had low compression. That's why I decided to pull this side off, because this spark plug, when I pulled this spark plug out, the ground strap was pushed in. So I figured something happened there, but this one had low compression, which cylinder 7 usually has issues, so I was not very surprised by that. So I wanted to pull this head off, and that's what I found. All right, so everything looked good, seemed fine. My plan was just to replace those 2 pistons and rods there. I have some extras, some spares, but let's watch the movement. So we see cylinder number 7 in the back coming up, and as I'm turning, all of the pistons are moving equally. As I move the wrench, all the pistons move. Cylinder 7 comes to top dead center, comes right back down, everything's moving equally. And then I noticed, watch this, cylinder number 7 in the back, when it comes to bottom dead center, watch, right here. So number 7 doesn't move. When all 3 of the other pistons are going to move a little bit, see how 7's not moving? It's like stuck. Now it starts to move up. So that was the little knocking noise that I was hearing. So that is actually the piston rod is bent and is starting to hit the crank. See, it's not moving, and the other ones are all moving a little bit. Now it starts to come up. So that little hesitation was that knocking I was hearing. There's like a little bit of a scuff mark. It's not actually metal scuffing, which is good. It's just kind of scuffing the buildup oil off of the crank. And you can also see it right here. See this line? It took me a while to see this, but that's there. Keep that in mind. And when that comes around, that's cylinder number 7. Let's also look right here. Huh, that's interesting. This one is for cylinder number 2. That's there. It exists. Let's look at what's going on right here. So this is cylinder 7. Watch as this piston comes down in that balancing section on the crank. So there they're actually hitting each other. That is why you're seeing the number 7 cylinder stop. Because it's not coming down anymore, even though the crank is actually trying to pull it down. And now it's going to break free a little bit. There. Breaks free and comes up. And that's where you see that little scuff mark. Look at that. So, the interesting part is, we have one on number 2. We also have some scuffing on number 1. So on number 1, on number 3, number 5 is broken the worst, and number 7 is broken and bent and scuffing. So all of the passenger side pistons and rods are bad. The driver's side, I haven't checked the top of the pistons yet because I didn't pull the head, but all of these are good. None of them are hitting.